Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Real Podcasters. This is a weekly podcast where we discuss all things movies, TV shows, video games and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Reagan as ever and I'm joined once again by my hysterically loud co-host. It's Dan.
Hysterically loud co-host. Hello you auditory nightmare.
That's exactly what I call myself every single week. Every single time I rock up on Premiere Pro, it's like, no, this is just going to be a nightmare.
Say it shouldn't just be called a quiet place. It should just be called an auditory nightmare.
An auditory nightmare. I like that as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode, which is actually going out about a week after we've recorded this. This is just how it works with me. I'm going to the lakes on the day that we usually record, and we are talking about A Quiet Place from 2018. This is a movie I wanted to revisit for quite a long time, and as it turns out, I have not watched it since getting Letterboxd in 2019, or at the very least, I didn't log it. What was your history with A Quiet Place? Part 1, as we now have to say.
You know, I had to really backtrack into my somewhat empty thoughts to the last time I rewatched it, which was a couple of weeks ago. But history of it, honestly, I just remember going into it just not knowing anything about it, and I just went on some social media posts saying, oh yeah, by the way, like if you're looking for a horror film that's just centered around sound being utilized in possibly the most epic way in terms of horror film, just a baffling film that just focuses so much on sound, give A Quiet Place a watch. So I did that, and it is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, you know what it is? I'm so happy that I still feel the same way on rewatch, because I was like, I really hope this isn't going to go down in terms of my overall opinion. It really hasn't, to be honest. It's still really great.
Can always rely on the social media world for well, actually, you can't sometimes.
No, you can't.
There's been definitely a couple of instances where
Hang on a second.
went into some horror films that haven't exactly been pleasant.
Yeah, I'm sure I've mentioned it before about my cinema experience with A Quiet Place, because I saw it in the Tyneside Cinema in Newcastle. I think it was in the classic screen, which I haven't been to for years. And on that day, I mean, it's quite ironic that we're talking about A Quiet Place tonight, because literally as we speak, downstairs is my girlfriend with a really, really bad cough. How convenient, considering that I was in the exact same position watching the film for the first time, not having seen a single trailer, knowing barely anything, just like, yeah, this looks quite good. Emily Blunt looks terrified on a poster. Apparently it's a horror movie. Okay, fine, I'll give it a go. And was one of the most memorable experiences of my life, mostly just crying through tears, trying not to make a sound, because Reagan really wanted to have a cough, and Reagan didn't bring a bottle of water because Reagan was an idiot in 2018. Hasn't really changed much since then.
Yeah, I was about to say nothing has really changed that much.
I brought a bottle of water to A Quiet Place Part 2, but I also had face masks, so I had that to contend with.
Yeah, it kind of defied the freaking point, I think.
As I say, this is still one of the best movies of 2018. I think it's such a simple idea. It's actually really frustrating that kind of story has never been done prior to this. It seems so obvious.
The only thing I could really relate it to, and it's not even because of the whole lack of sound thing, it's just there happens to be some giant alien monster, is The Mist.
Right.
From 2007. But again, you look at the two in comparison, and as you say, a premise to A Quiet Place is so simple. It's literally monsters have invaded. They're very, very sensitive to any kind of noise. And you've got a bunch of people just trying to survive. Like, there's nothing really too much to that plot, but it's the way it's carried out. It's just so memorable.
This would have been a very generic film if this was just set on the day of the invasion, which we are getting soon. So, you know, I've already got questions as to whether or not it's actually going to be able to sustain anything. But setting it a few months to a year into the initial thing is a very clever way to set everything up and show a completely different world. So there's no absolute chaos. It's just here's just one
you're kind
family.
of going into the mystery of what the hell's happened. That's a problem I have with films when they just, well, when they supposedly do this. I mean, I don't know anything about this new Quiet Place film, but I hope it's not just going to be, we're going to set it on day one. Here's what happened. You're just taking a hell out of the mystery. Like, I'm expecting like some generic sci-fi horror plot where a meteorite goes to Earth and these monsters hatch out of it and then all hell breaks loose. It's just the most rinsed and repeat thing ever. So I really hope that doesn't... Is it the same guy directing it?
No, it's...
No,
I mean,
not.
I think John Krasinski has a story credit on it, which I think is good. It's nice that he's still attached. It actually sounds more like Matt Reeves' original idea for a sequel to Cloverfield, where it's just a different group of people on the same night with their own story as everything's going on. I mean, this is... I mean, as the name does suggest, this is going to be on the first day, so it's very much like the opening scenes of A Quiet Place 2, which had the ballsy idea of, let's actually show the first day, which I can remember coming out of this movie thinking, I don't want to ever see that, because I'm not going to be very interested. But those first few scenes in A Quiet Place 2 are great, so I'm hoping day one can actually sustain that. I do have questions considering...
With the second one, at least, like, it's not for a full-on feature. It's just, like, it's an introduction, if that. And it's maybe, like, 5 minutes?
The thing I really love is the fact that this is, for the most part, a silent film, which is very brave to do. Yeah, and because most of it is spoken through sign language, which is terrific, which makes sense given Millicent Simmons' character, Reagan.
I know I was about to say, and it's literally spelt the same way as your name as well.
It's never said in either of them, so I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. I didn't look at the behind the scenes.
We'll just look at the sign language for Reagan.
Again, I don't even think that's even said at any point either, or not said. So she could have whatever name she wants. According to Wikipedia, it's Reagan. I'm like, God damn it.
First it was Reagan from The Exorcist, and now we've got Reagan from A Quiet Place.
Can people just stop giving characters names after me, for the love of God? Like, I don't like it. I'm going to sue. I think the decision to have it through mostly sign language, I think works really well, especially considering, like, as I say, this is set, within, like, the first year of everything happening. We're seeing how this family has adjusted to things. So, for example, you see them playing a board game, don't have little wooden plastic pieces, it's just little bits of cloth, stuff like that. If they're eating food, it's off a leaf as opposed to a plate. They've really had to completely change their lives.
Oh yeah, they've totally had to adapt to the new surrounding. I mean, even just like going out, they have like the trail of what they have to follow to basically avoid anything that might make a sound when they're going on like a scavenging mission or something.
Yeah, that's such a subtle way of world building, especially with the sandpath stuff. That's such a good idea. So in terms of the cast, I mean, they're all absolutely brilliant. But
yeah, I'd say.
Unfortunately for me, I do have to give the standout to Reagan. And that's not because we have the same name. Trust me, if it was my way, it would be at the very bottom. But no, I think Millicent Simmons is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, all the cast are brilliant, but for me, definitely her is the highlight. I think because it's just such a tragic arc that she has as well. She feels so blamed by the death of her younger brother, and her father obviously feels sort of estranged to her, but really that's not the case. And I mean that last scene. Damn.
I'd forgotten my reaction to that scene when I first saw the film. I think mostly because I was just focused on not choking to death, frankly. But
you were trying not to die, and when it got to that scene, you were just trying not to cry and die.
Yeah, both. I was trying not to cry for several reasons. One, because I was getting really wound up with the scene, and two, because I was choking. It wasn't fun at all. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that entire relationship I do find really fascinating, and like both Simmons and John Krasinski as well does such a great job, absolutely
Yeah.
selling it. Especially because it's like a different form of guilt, because it's like he doesn't necessarily feel like angry at her. He doesn't necessarily blame her.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
he's
like
more.
it's never ever pointed that she's the reason for it,
Hmm.
but you can kind of sense the atmosphere between the two.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where, I mean, yeah, obviously for spoilers, we've already started discussing spoilers for the film, but of course, like the opening scene features the Abbott family with their young child Bo. Again, name is never said, but he's killed because he's attracted to one of the little space shuttle toys, wants to start playing with it. Now it's gonna start making noises, and little Reagan gives him the batteries back, and because he's just a little kid, just starts playing with it because he's none the wiser, because he's a very naive, very young child who probably doesn't understand the full extent as to what's going on. So
Definitely not.
so it's hardly her making a stupid decision or being stupid. It's her just in that one moment being like,
You could even see it as the fact that because they're living in such a strange world now, is that you're going to need to keep a kid preoccupied, even with a very. I just find it so fascinating, the fact that, like, even a little D battery toy rocket ship can cause so many problems in so little time.
it just makes it doubly terrifying. I think they could have gone one step further and have it not make that much of a sound, and that being the frightening thing. Because yeah, you make barely any sound, and those things will hate you. Which I don't think are ever actually given names. I think at one point there's like a newspaper article that refers to them as like angels of death, and I'm like, we're not gonna call them the angels of death. That's a bit silly.
I've always heard them as just the monsters.
Yeah, the monsters or the creatures or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, that entire opening scene really just sets the tone. It's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we're focusing on this one family. Someone is going to get it next, especially if the one thing that they kill first is the kid. I thought that's a ballsy move.
It is, especially when it involves a kid as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I've
Like
never
adults, we're
really
not
seen that.
really too arsed about, but when it's a kid, it's like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
what this movie is.
I do remember people getting not necessarily up in arms, but really commenting on the fact that after that we then cut to about a year later, and Emily Blunt's character, also terrific, is pregnant, and people started thinking, why have the why
Like
why have they
Bo's looking
decided
down
to-
from his little cloud, just like, am I that easily replaced?
just like after everything I didn't do.
I get killed by a monster for playing with a rocket ship, and now my mother's knocked up again. Great.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, to be honest, I think if you put in the situation where you don't know if you're ever going to survive and you kind of want your family to survive, you're gonna do it on impulse, not literally. Well, in this case, I never really had an issue with it, especially because they had already planned for how
I
they were
just
going to
saw
deal
it
with
as
this.
like, it's family. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's not that they're like trying to cut them out of the picture or anything like that, but it's a family. It's
Yeah.
just instinct to survive, even if it means having another sprog.
A quiet sprog.
A quiet sprog.
I did actually forget that they do have a little sort of like gravestone for him as well on the bridge,
Yeah, it's the same bridge, yeah.
and I thought that's so sweet though, and especially considering I mean, one thing I always notice as well is the fact that it's kind of left completely untouched, so you really do get a sense that there's just no one around at all, which I believe is kind of retconned in the second one, where I think Cillian Murphy's character has been watching them even during the events of the first film. So the characters just in general are so good at you. And as I say, having the idea of the movie taking place sometime into the events of the actual thing, this is the only way the film could actually work. Obviously, as I say, we are getting a prequel that's set on day one. We don't know how that's going to be. I'm sure we'll do a little review of that, unless it's absolutely terrible. From which case, no, we don't.
I don't doubt it. I mean, the bar is set with this, well, now franchise.
As I say, with the film being set so far into the events of the invasion, we do get to see the Abbott's family's life on this farm. They've got like an entire security system with lights hanging around everywhere that glow red.
Oh yeah, they've got like these well, I wouldn't even say they're Christmas lights. They're just like sort of what you'd find in like those old photography rooms, like with the red light bulbs.
Yeah.
Like dark room lights. It's just strings of dark room lights, and they use that as a way to like communicate and things, and it's brilliant because obviously they can't go, oh, by the way,
it's like, oh no, there is a creature over there.
Yeah, they can't exactly like, you know, do anything like that considering the nature of this film.
Mm-hmm. Although I will actually give it to one criticism that people have had from the moment this film was released, which was how awesome is their like electric generator in terms of not making sounds, because they've got a lot of lights and stuff on.
Yeah, that's something I've never ever thought about.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't think about it until I rewatched it and I started looking like, I want to have a look at what
like, man, that generator
saying.
has got to be in the most soundproofed area of their little humble abode.
I can guarantee it was made by Tesla. Just like
it's
nice
just surrounded
and quiet.
by an absolute mountain of soundproofing.
Someone's been shopping at IKEA. Which in fairness you could, because there's nothing left. But yeah, they do have a full security system, and it's not like it's completely flawless. It does go wrong on several occasions, but it's nice that this family have actually got some sort of semblance despite everything going wrong around them. I mean, I think at one point you see on a little document on the wall specifically talking about how many creatures are actually in the area, where it was like 3.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think
they tally how many creatures are in the area. It's, yeah.
And I do think they do actually stick to that. I do think they do actually stick to 3 creatures until everything
I'm pretty
goes
sure
wrong.
the father has a like basement where the tally is, and there's documents, and it's like one of those like crime scene boards where there's like string connecting things. That's like, where did they come from? What are they? But then if you notice as well, they're trying to find, well, how to essentially deal with one. So it becomes like a sound and then question mark, loud question mark, hunt question mark.
Eats question mark, moves question mark, alive question mark. I mean,
question mark?
it's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't think anyone in reality would ever have a wall that's just covered in newspapers and crap like that. But also, who's still going to be printing newspapers when the world is essentially ended? Like, we don't really read newspapers that much to begin with, and the world hasn't actually ended yet. So I do find that quite funny, but it works for like it's a movie. They're allowed to do that. And what I do really appreciate is the way that they figure out how to actually kill these things, or at least disorientate them, and that's through high frequency sounds, which in the one sense, that was always going to be the way to do it, especially considering they're blind, so you can't really do anything with the eyes or anything. So the idea of it being the hearing implant that Reagan is wearing. This is going right back to
not
the
this Reagan,
thing.
the film Reagan.
Yeah, the other one, not me. I'm not nearly as clever, unfortunately. But I like how that's kind of figured out by accident, because they are trying to sort of like fix her hearing aid across the film, and it's like, look, it's not going to work. It just isn't. And then it starts to like fracture out. It starts to break.
Yeah,
and
it
then
starts to like hiss, and well, it just has a higher frequency to it, and it hurts it. And then I think it's during that, then they figure out that it actually disorientates the monster, because its weird head thing just starts opening, and its ear starts doing horrible things.
Yeah, there's a really great scene where we do get that basically confirmed when she's next to the cornfields. And she's just sort of like kneeling on the ground, and because she can't hear what's behind her, and one of the creatures is, and then it starts to short out, and then the creature in the background starts to flap around and then run off, and she has absolutely no idea. I think I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. It really works.
Such a tense scene, that, man.
I mean, what's seen in this isn't tense. I mean, we'll get at that
is
when
a
it
very
comes to
true
fear
point. I mean, from the
moments.
start to the finish, it's all pretty tense.
Yeah, and what really helps sell us on the tense kind of atmosphere is, of course, the creatures, which, to be honest, I always thought looked like a very small version of the Clover creature in Cloverfield.
Yeah,
which I don't
kind
mind.
of. And you know what it is? I really like how they're not just in every single scene. Like, I mean, even the intro one, it's brief as hell. Like, you've honestly got to pause it to see it, because he just jumps out of nowhere. I'm assuming it's a he. It's an it. It
Creature.
jumps out of nowhere.
Yeah. It very much takes the Jaws approach, which is never a bad idea, to be honest. It always works. Or you could say the Alien approach, or anything where you like just leave the creature off in the background and always focus on the humans, because that's what sells us on the horror of the situation, and that very much works. So you're like, you don't get a good look at this thing, and really until the end when it gets its head blown up with a shotgun in one of the most satisfying ways. It's just beautiful. And I mean, I think, again, I don't think they're ever given official names, but again, it's like at that point you're basically asking for us to know truly what these creatures are, and you don't really need to. I'm happy for them to just be like, yep, they're here.
Nah, you don't need like some origin of where the hell they come from. I mean, this is something that I hope that this prequel doesn't do, because I don't need it. Who honestly needs it? The fact is they're here and now they're causing issues.
It's the kind of thing where it's like, if it's just going to be another story that's set on day one, I'm like, okay, that's fine. The other thing I do really appreciate, and this is before we get to our favourite moments and stuff, is Marco Beltrami's score, which I was re-listening to when I was doing the script for this, and it's such a great piece of music, to be honest.
I do really like it. I listened to it as well, actually, in preparation for this. I just had it on while I was waiting for some games to download.
I mean, in terms of my favourite moments, we've already said the opening scene with the death of Bo. That one, just
definitely. I mean, even just the bits before it when they're just going to this abandoned shop and they're just looking around and they're so careful with what they touch. I mean, Emily Blunt's character, she's like behind the counter of the pharmacy and she's looking through the medicine bottles and she's so careful to not knock anything over. It really gets under my skin because it drives my anxiety through the wall.
Yeah, I bet it does. Well, actually, the one thing I do actually like, going back to the sign language side of things, there's a very subtle difference in the way that the parents actually speak to the kids through sign language, where the father is a lot more, like, blunt, ironically enough, given his wife is Emily Blunt, which I've just realised. His feel a lot more just, like, very quick and like straight to the point, whereas Emily Blunt's characters ones are a little bit more emotive. They're a little bit slower, which I quite like. So like one of them is like,
there's more conversation to it, whereas the father is just sort of stay here, don't move.
Yeah, one of them is working on pure survival mode. The other one is like, let's just try and
one's like the survival and the other one's more the reassurance, I think.
Yeah. Which I do like, and there is a lot of that, especially in the first couple of scenes after the titles, where we do see their way of life go. I think, in terms of the scariest and most tense sequence, I do legitimately think it's the sequence with Emily Blunt going into labour, starting at the bottom of the house.
Yeah, I would,
and then trying to get to the top with a knackered foot.
Yeah.
Because that nail, I remember watching that for the first time on rewatch, and I was like, I'm going to hate this nail. Every single time I see it, I'm like, please watch out for the nail. Because I'd completely forgotten who actually gets stabbed by the nail, and it is Blunt's character. But, I mean, Chekhov's nail is just everywhere in that film. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that entire sequence is so tense.
Yeah, that is definitely what I would say is the scariest part of that film. I'd also say when the father and the other son, can't remember his name, they basically go out to wherever and they find a man in the woods who
Oh gosh, yeah.
alerts the monster, and like it is just such a terrifying, intense scene because they're running from, this thing could literally jump out of them at any point.
I think as well, I mean, one of the reasons I really love that scene is because that is really the only other person we see in the entire film. And I know there's more context given to it in the sequel, where the idea is not every single human that has actually survived is worth saving or clinging on to, because some of them are also going to think that about others. So that guy
definitely
was probably perfectly normal, but he has no idea about Lee and the rest of the Abbott family. They could be absolute psychos. So which one do you go for?
Yeah, it's like it's survival instinct, isn't it? All these questions rushing through your head.
Yeah. God, I love that scene. I actually completely forgot about that one. That one works so well.
I think it sticks with me a lot more because him and his father go to this waterfall that covers their sound. So they just have this like tiny bit of fun for best part of like years on end.
Yeah, it's like one of only like
It's like
two
relief.
scenes. Yeah, well, yeah, because I mean, like it's one of only like a couple of scenes where there's actual dialogue, because everything else is through sign language, and there's the rare time where it's like, yeah, we can actually talk here, and it's like a nice bit of release,
I'm
especially
pretty sure
for
it's
the audience.
son who's like really cautious about it at
Oh,
first
very.
as well.
Which I think is
Because he's been
that's
brought
like
up
smart.
in this world that you can't make a sound.
And obviously, I think the most emotional one is, of course, the death of Lee, which is really heartbreaking, to be completely honest. Like, that one, it's not earned at all. It's not an earned
It
death
is
by
just
any means.
such a harrowing moment because it's all this time that the daughter Reagan feels so unloved by her father, the supposed guilt, and then it's just this sign language. It's like, I will always love you, and then he just sacrifices
like, oh,
himself.
come
I'm like I just felt the monster just stab my heart and then chew it and spit it out.
I'm sure I remembered reading that the line was just I love you, and it was Milton Simmons' idea to say I have always loved you, because it's a really good payoff to their relationship and like the position that they're in. And even that like little moment between the parents just talking, and even Emily Blunt's like, you need to tell her, like you need to actually tell her, because it's not enough to just be like, yeah, I know it's not her fault, because she doesn't feel like, she feels like it's her fault this entire time. So just having that nice little bit of, I've always loved you, and it's like, oh God, damn it, Krasinski, God damn it.
But it's just the fact that he's got this like smile on his face as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knows he's going to die, but he has to say this before he dies. Potentially horribly as well. I mean, this is something. I mean, the death stuff is never ever shown, but I'm assuming these things just, well, they by the look of them, they're going to do some serious harm.
Well, that's the thing, because the don't exactly eat the humans; they just kill them, and for all intents and purposes, it's just basically
they
for
just
fun.
go and attack sound until it stops making said sound.
Yeah, which, considering you then get to the proper ending with them cornered by one in the basement, very, very Velociraptor style, which I love.
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of Jurassic Parkness with the Velociraptors in the kitchen, except it's the monster in the basement.
Yeah, but then figuring out how to properly utilize the hearing aid to kill these things, which just using the sound isn't enough to kill it yet. They still have to use the shotgun, and that still ends on such a on just a brilliant, just like rapid ending of, oh yeah, more creatures coming. Now we know what to do. So then you're like, oh Christ, okay, what the hell actually is going to happen next? And then just cut to black. That ending, I feel, is better than what we get with part 2, which is just basically a repeat of this. And I mean, I'm sure I even said it at the time, because both me and Dan went to go and see it. It was both our first experiences in a cinema during COVID. It was a thing, and
It was.
And it is literally a case of like both creatures die, cut to black, and you're like I I know that these are produced by Michael Bay. I don't want the films to end in the same way Michael Bay one does, where it's just the end. Just big explosion, death, the end. I'm like, oh, come on, Michael. Because, yeah, the ending for part 1 is definitely a lot stronger than part 2. Although I do still like quite a bit of the ending of part 2. But yeah, I'm just really happy that rewatching this movie, I still really love it. To be honest, I think I might love it more than I did.
This is got to be. I mean, this is just my retrospective on it, but I think it's easily the best horror film of 2018.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
there's some other films. I mean, there was the remake of Suspiria from 77, and they did a remake of it. That's really good as well, actually. Oh, okay. And then there was. I'm trying to really think. I mean, I've no way watched like every horror film from 2018. I haven't. I'm just trying to think of other ones. Well, there was definitely Suspiria. Her 40 Ween. I mean, yeah, her 40 Ween.
Yeah.
There's some other ones, but this is just the absolute king of 2018 horror because it's so simple, but it's absolutely terrifying as well. And for characters who don't physically speak and they just communicate through sign language, their development is absolutely brilliant. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I think it just goes to show, considering how easy it was for rip-offs to appear, especially like 2 of them on Netflix within a year. There was there was one with Sandra Bullock. I think it was Bird Box or something, where instead you're not allowed to look at the creatures.
Oh yeah. Netflix did a bunch of them.
And then there was The Silence with Stanley Tucci, which is it sounds exactly like A Quiet Place, and I'm like, come on. Like,
yeah, Bird Box is pretty much. It's not very good because all you can see is just A Quiet Place, but instead of the whole thing being reliant on hearing, it's sight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something to do with if you look at something that's happening and you witness whatever this being is, you automatically go and commit suicide. It just drives you to kill yourself. It's pretty morbid, but it's not very good because it is essentially just Netflix's answer to A Quiet Place.
And I don't need that at all.
No, you don't. I'm pretty sure there's another one as well. It's like Bird Box Barcelona, I think. I haven't watched it. I don't really need to because I didn't like the first film.
That is the shittest title for a film sequel I've ever heard.
BBB.
BBB. Triple B. I mean, Netflix clearly doesn't know how to actually make a quiet place film. But does AI? That is a fascinating question. Was as subtle as a brick to the face. Yes,
it's about as subtle as the monster in the cornfield.
Exactly. So obviously we are returning to our little AI showdown that we do. This is now like one of my favourite segments because it's just so stupid.
It's just so unpredictable with every one we do.
Well, so far, the running gag, more often than not, is food-related things. Greatly Mind doesn't have
because
that.
the last time when we did the Godzilla one, it ended up spiraling into kaiju-endorsed cereal.
Yeah, the Manila Pops. I don't know
Manila
why.
Pops.
Manila Pops.
And Rodan Flakes.
Rodan Flakes and Mothra Crispies.
Mothra Crispies.
Anyway, we're not talking about the kaiju this week, thank goodness, because I was sick of talking about bloody Manila Pops. No, as I say, we're going to be doing a little AI showdown where we've told ChatGPT, well, I've told it to just write me a silly sequel to A Quiet Place. But as ever, because I think it's funnier, over to my co-host.
Okay, well, this one's actually considerably shorter.
Okay.
I'm somewhat impressed by this because they managed to cram everything needed to be in around 3 paragraphs.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So this
5,
is
6.
A Loud Place, The Roaring Return. And he's already face-palmed. That's a great sign already.
That's scarily similar to mine.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
In the aftermath of the previous hushed chaos, the Abbott family discovers that the creatures were just the beginning of Earth's auditory woes. a new menace has emerged, a race of extraterrestrial beings with an insatiable love for karaoke. The family, armed with makeshift noise-cancelling devices, embarks on a journey to find other survivors and put an end to the alien karaoke invasion. Along the way, they encounter other groups of survivors, including a band of punk rockers who have found a way to weaponize sound against the karaoke-loving aliens.
Oh, Christ, oh bloody
I
mighty.
feel a bit attacked now. As they navigate through the world where silence is no longer golden, but necessary for survival, the Abbots must confront their own fears and find their voice in the most unlikely of places, a world where being loud is the only way to save humanity.
Bloody hell. You have every right to feel attacked in that one.
I know. It's like, oh, we need louder. Oh yeah, we'll just go with punk rockers. I mean, they're not wrong. We are loud.
Yeah, that's exactly why I refer to you as the hysterically loud co-host. It wasn't actually because of the punk stuff, as it turns out. That also works. I didn't plan on that. Yeah, very quick. I mean, that sounds quite interesting. I don't know if I'd want to watch this, but it sounds interesting.
I don't think I would, honestly.
No, to be honest, for some reason, when I briefly looked over this actually sounds... this sounds remarkably similar to a film that does exist. It's a film we really don't like, and in fact, we spoke about in the first year of us podcasting for way too long, as it turns out.
Oh dear.
So this is A Noisy Place.
A Noisy Place.
The Return of the Chatterbugs.
The Chatterbugs.
Yeah. In the aftermath of the harrowing events of A Quiet Place, you can tell we both use the same bloody app for this. It sounds
yeah,
very
definitely.
similar.
ChatGPT didn't really think this through very well.
Doesn't have much thought. Humanity has learned to adapt to the silent world dominated by blind creatures with acute hearing. But just when they thought it was safe to breathe a little louder, a new threat emerges. The Chatterbugs. So here's the plot. Years have passed since the Abbott family's daring escape, and the remaining survivors have built a semblance of normalcy? Is normalcy a word?
Normality?
No, yeah, that one. In their silent existence. However, their tranquility is shattered when a group of eccentric scientists accidentally unleash a swarm of genetically modified insects called chatterbugs.
Oh,
Dan's figured it out.
I've just clicked on what film this is starting to sound like as well.
A Quiet Park.
It's Jurassic World Dominion all over again.
Yeah, it is. I was like, you know what? I want to pick something else because I fucking hate that film. Actually, nah, screw it. I'm going to keep it because now it sounds like an actual film was made. And all of a sudden,
I mean, it automatically sounds
makes...
better than Dominion, but, besides the point.
Well, if anything, it makes Dominion look even worse because it makes it sound like it was written by AI.
Yeah. Isn't really doing it any favours.
No, it's not. These bugs emit loud, incessant chattering noises, attracting the attention of the blind creatures lurking in the wilderness. So it's clearly just a war between the chatterbugs and the creatures that don't have names. As chaos ensues, the Abbott family, along with a ragtag group of survivors, must embark on a journey to find the source of the chatterbugs and put an end to their noisy menace before humanity is wiped out once and for all. Along the way, they encounter bizarre obstacles, including a colony of singing frogs and a tribe of eccentric hermits who communicate solely through beatboxing. Oh boy.
So are the singing frogs a bit like the statue heads out of the Haunted Mansion, where they're just so annoying?
I was also thinking that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of I can't remember the song, but yeah, it's basically the stone heads from a Haunted Mansion. Despite the odds stacked against them, the group perseveres, using their wits and unconventional tactics to outsmart both the blind creatures and the pesky chatterbugs. Think they're a little worse than pesky, to be honest, if they're going to bring the entire planet to its knees. It's like, oh, those pesky aliens, honestly. Along the journey, they discover the importance of laughter and communication in the face of adversity. They clearly didn't see the first film. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, maybe in like an alternate universe, guys, but here.
Yeah. Forging unlikely friendships and strengthening their resolve to survive. In the climactic showdown, the Abbott family devises a daring plan to lure the blind creatures away from civilization using a cacophony of noise, while simultaneously leading the chatterbugs into a trap set by the scientists. With a combination of bravery, ingenuity, and a whole lot of noise, they emerge victorious, restoring peace and quiet to the world once more. As the sun sets on their adventure, the Abbott family and their newfound friends share a moment of triumph, knowing that they can face any challenge as long as they stick together. And as the credits roll, the audience is treated to the sound of silence, a reminder of the preciousness of peace in a noisy world.
Well, that's just going to be the shittest credits ever. There's no music, no nothing. Who the hell's going to sit through that?
If it's the end credits to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, also with a sunset, and if it was silence, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, but if I've got something to watch, I don't really want to like sit in a cinema for the best part of 10 minutes just watching names go up a screen with no music, no nothing.
Dan has just ruined the film experience entirely now. Don't watch the credits, kids. They're rubbish.
No, watch it if it's going to actually entertain you and you're curious about it. But for this, I think I'm going to skip.
I mean, as a showdown, this one's quite difficult to judge because I like yours.
Well,
but mine
was
so made
similar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tie, really, because I think if you combine the two, then you've got you don't have a decent. You've still got an abomination.
I would say, like, regardless, you just end up with Jurassic World Dominion.
Yeah, you do. You end up with hold on. You end up with Jurassic World Dominion with a band of punk rockers who weaponize against karaoke-loving aliens.
So it's a combination of A Quiet Place. We've also got a combination of Jurassic World Dominion. And we've also got an entire section of Batman and Robin. Interesting.
A quiet punk dominion.
A quiet punk dominion.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll call it a tie because one of these films actually exists and it's terrible, and the other one doesn't exist yet and sounds remarkably fine.
It's just a massive improvement on it, really.
Somehow, yeah. And because we are talking about a horror film, we're going to bring back Dan's really cool idea, which is how to survive a horror film. Truthfully, we probably wouldn't make it past the first few minutes. If I'm completely honest.
Well,
I would just be screaming too much.
I've thought about it logically, right? And if I was, just on my own in the world, right, I would pretty much have to just adapt in possibly the worst ways ever because I'm used to noise.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to, I'd probably go insane, in honesty. Because I'm going to be without music. I'm going to be without everything that I know and love. I can't play my guitar. I can't play my Xbox. I can't even make a cup of tea. How am I going to live in the world?
Oh man, I didn't think about having a cup of tea or coffee like crap. It's just it's just gonna have to be iced coffees for like the rest of your life.
I'd rather get eaten by the monster in all honesty than ever having to digest that awful stuff.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, granted, I haven't got a guitar to play, but yeah, I think there'd be so many things I'd have to just be completely rid of. Like, for one, I couldn't even bring like a computer or like a phone because odds are if I just here we go, right, here is the microphone, here is my phone.
Yeah,
I'll figure out
they're
in
gonna
the edits as to how loud that is, because literally all they'll hear is Reagan is typing a hot take. Get him, lads.
Get him. And I think, me being the clumsy git that I am, I think even if I manage to cut all that stuff out and set my own path with sand, I'd probably end up stepping on branches anyway. I'm not exactly known for my stealthiness.
Yeah, you're not really well known for your coordination.
I'm sort of known for just appearing out of the blue and scaring people. I don't know how, because I'm 6 foot tall and I stomp like an elephant, but hey-oh. That's a matter for another day, apparently. But if that was the case in A Quiet Place, I'd be fecked.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, much like with a lot of these horror movies, we would be killed almost immediately because we would just do something really stupid. I mean, if it was literally we just appeared
Like
like about a year in,
like when they're in the pharmacy, I'm already dead because I've knocked over half the pill bottles.
yeah, because it's like, well, which one do I need? Which one do I want? Decisions. I take both. Oh, okay, they're shaking. Here comes the monster. Great.
It'd be even worse if it was like set in like the summery season, and I have pretty horrific hay fever, so you can imagine what it'd be like when you're stuck out in the middle of a forest and you're just surrounded by pollen. You're just trying not to sneeze or sniffle. You just
all of a sudden, I really hope that that's the reason why Lupita Nyong'o isn't talking in A Quiet Place Day 1. It's because she has really bad hay fever. And it's the middle of the summer. It's like, can't.
a
No.
summery
No.
place,
A
hay fever ridden place.
sneezy place. Yeah, we've just come to the conclusion that, yeah, both of us are kind of screwed.
Probably not going to survive.
No. We have more chance of surviving a Halloween movie than we do A Quiet Place.
Yeah, I mean, the only logical way is you've basically just got to be as quiet as a mouse, as the expression goes.
What I would do is I think I would go and hide in, like, I mean, this is more for like American and stuff, but find like a radio station building and just hide in one of the booths and just stay there because it's all soundproof.
Don't they do that in the second one toward the end? Don't they go to like some
Cack, they do.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
I'm sure they do, because then the ending is when they're in a recording studio and they utilise the speakers to get rid of the monsters, and then it does the whole classic Michael Bay ending where it just cuts to black.
Yeah. Okay, so then I can't use that because they actually use that in the sequel. Bugger. Think of something else. I can't think of anything else. We are screwed anyway.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because, as I said, this movie is still absolutely terrific. And again, I'm just so happy that it's still as great as it is.
I would very much like just... I'm going to have to get like a big poster of it in my room somewhere because I really do like it.
I'm surprised you
It's
don't.
probably one of my favourite modern day horror movies. I mean, there's a lot of movies I like, but this is definitely one of my favourite of the favourites.
Yeah, but that pretty much wraps up our thoughts on A Quiet Place. So thank you very much for listening. We've definitely had a lot of fun talking about it.
It's actually nice just to talk about something that we both really like.
Happens very rarely, to be honest.
I mean, it's definitely happened a lot more this year compared to, you know, other episodes we've done. It's like, we've seen this in cinema. We didn't like it.
Well, no, because, see, the trick is, if we do end up talking about something that we did see in a cinema and we don't like, we relegate it to a mini-sode, which is the least that it should be allowed.
Which is, you know, it's really kind of setting the bar. It's like it's going to be mini-sode.
Next week, we are returning to the world of video games, because, you know, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago with Dead Space. I did mention in that one that there was another video game that we had lined up for fairly soon that I had to complete, and that was Outlast from 2013, which I'm happy to report I finished it yesterday, and I have many, many things to discuss that are slightly more positive than it was with Dead Space. Oh boy.
I know.
Although, as we wrap things up, I will actually give a quick shout out to one of our listeners, Connor, good friend of mine from work, because he came up to me, I think it was last week, and he said that he'd listened to the Dead Space episode, and he was like, so, I listened to it. Did you actually like the game or not? Because I couldn't quite tell. I was like, well, Dan does. Me. It's
not so sure.
It's very pretty, isn't it?
It's a very pretty game. I just can't play it very well.
Well, no, I couldn't finish the damn thing.
Again, as said in about 50 minutes, 40 seconds of that Dead Space episode, it's not my fault you shit at the game.
Well, at least I finished out last and we can talk about it next week. So you can look forward to that. So thank you very much for listening to this week's one, and we'll see you next week. And until then, it's goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.